What's up, fellas? It's Lyndon again for another fun visual effects training video from ActionVFX. In this episode, we're going to create some pretty groundbreaking destruction effects. And you can see in this scene, it looks like the actual ground is breaking. Like, it's not like a separate element is cropped into the scene. It's like the actual ground is breaking. How is that possible? If you're trying to add value and grow your skills and learn Adobe After Effects, this is the perfect project and tutorial for you to follow. But you have to download the project files in the description, because the most effective way to learn is to actually try and create something yourself and not just listen to someone talk. Alright, we want to make you an absolute ninja with this powerful software to create whatever your imagination is. And remember, people only invest in you as much as you invest in yourself. So be sure and watch this tutorial in full. I know people still have low attention spans thanks to social media, but be sure and watch this tutorial in full and download the project files and follow along, and that's the most effective way to learn. So let's go ahead and get started creating this ground crack scene. Now, no one knows what's going on here, but I'm gonna make my educated guess, and you can comment below your guess about what you think's going on. What I think's happening is they're moving into a new apartment. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna put my TV here and my expensive gaming computer right here, and then boom, yeah. And then the dude down here is like, what? It's like, what the freak? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use stock footage. And we're going to use the ActionVFX Ground Crack Volume 2. So you go to actionvfx.com and they have a huge library of all the different types of stock footage, fire, smoke, all this stuff. And we're going to grab the Ground Cracks Volume 2 stock footage. You can composite this into your scene. And we'll also have a version of this ground crack that comes in the project file so you can follow along with this tutorial. Alright, so we are in After Effects and here's our footage. Now, this right here is 4K footage, which means it's really intense on our computer. It's really hard to render. Now, let me ask you guys a random question. What is the most valuable thing you have? It's time, your time. Creating visual effects can be very time consuming, and that's a problem, especially if you're editing with high quality, large files, because it takes a long time to preview and render. Now I'm going to show you guys a savage technique for how you can save so much time and increase preview and render speeds. Alright? And that's called proxies. If you don't know what proxies are, basically a proxy is a low quality version of that file. So what we're going to do, let's say, we have this footage here, we can drag it into a new composition, and what we want to do is render a low quality version of this file and set that low quality version of that file as the proxy. This is what a proxy looks like. When you have it enabled, it's the low quality version. When you disable it, it's the high quality version. So you can easily switch between high quality version and low quality version with this proxy here. So this is the high quality footage. We want to render it out, composition, add to render queue. We can add to Adobe Media Encoder and render it out as a low quality file. That's easy for After Effects to preview. And then after you finish rendering the low quality file out, you want to right click on your footage and do set proxy. You want to click file here and find the low quality file that you rendered. For me, it's right here. Alright, I hit import and boom, you see that button appears, and when the button is enabled, it's the low quality file, and when we disable the button, it's the high quality file. And this increases your workflow and creativity so much because you can render and preview faster. That's called proxies. Alright, so like I said before, we're going to be compositing stock footage. And of course, you got to download the stock footage from actionvfx.com. Alright, so if you watched these tutorials before, you know what the prerequisite to compositing stock footage is. What do you have to do before you composite stock footage? You have to track your scene, right? Because then your stock footage feels too special because everything's moving, but it's being stationary. Stock footage feels special. No, it's got to move with everything else, right? I have to follow the motion of the camera. Alright, so how are we going to track this scene? The first option, you can go over here to the tracker window in After Effects, and this fits the people whose preference is to waste time, be frustrated, and get bad results. Alright, if that's your goal, this is the perfect solution for you. Alright, no, I'm kidding. After Effects Tracker does work good in some cases, but if you're a real street ninja, you go up here to animation, click Track in Boris FX Mocha. Now, that is a great 2D tracking tool. You want to research that if you don't know about it. Trust me, that's an amazing tracking tool, but we're going to use neither of those. We're actually going to 3D track our scene. So basically, After Effects is going to create a camera that matches the camera in real life, and then we can place real 3D objects in our scene, and they're going to follow the motion of the camera. This is going to be amazing if you don't know about it. And it still is amazing, even if you do know about it. You just got used to it. But sometimes we forget how amazing these tools are that we know how to use. Alright, so before I 3D track the scene and recreate the camera, I'm going to render out a different version of the footage. You can see here that I masked out the moving subject so we don't have inaccurate track points. Alright, and also added some contrast to the footage. That's going to help it pick up track points better. Now all we have to do is right click on that footage file, go to track and stabilize, and choose track camera. Automatically it's going to apply a 3D camera tracker effect to the layer you right clicked on, and it's going to analyze your footage and figure out the exact motion of the camera in real life. That is freaking amazing. Once it's finished, you want to click on the 3D camera tracker effect in your effects controls, and we're going to lasso the points that are near where we want to put the stock footage right here. And if we right click and do create solid and camera, it's going to create a 3D camera plus a solid that positions at the average of all these points we selected. So this solid is positioned in 3D space, and it's going to follow the exact motion of the scene because After Effects created a camera that matches the camera in real life. Look how solid that is. It's just nailed to the ground there. Alright, I'm going to switch back to our main footage. And by the way, I'm using the solo switches here. You know, you have the visibility switch, but you also have a solo where it turns all the layers off except the ones that are soloed. Alright, so now that we're finished with the track, let's go ahead and drag in our stock footage. So there's two steps. One, create the 3D camera track. Two, position your stock footage in the correct spot in 3D space. So let's go ahead and import our stock footage. Right click on a blank space, go to import file. Let's go to the ground cracks element we downloaded. Let's go to the beauty folder. And you see here we have an image sequence. So there's one image for every frame. You want to click on the first image, go down here and check Open EXR Sequence. So it's going to turn all these images into a video. That's super cool. And it's a .exr file, which is the best file ever. And you're going to see why later on in this tutorial. Alright, select the first one, check Open EXR Sequence, hit import. Alright, now we want to drag this into our composition at the top. Alright, we can't see it because our time indicator is over here, so we gotta move it where the time indicator is. And it's really big. We can select the layer, hit S for scale, and just scale it down like this. Click and drag on those numbers. And we need to position it in the right point in 3D space. Remember, that's the second step. So track camera, position stock footage in 3D space. Alright, well how do we know where to position this in 3D space? Let's go back to the footage we tracked. We did the 3D camera tracker on. Let's select the 3D camera tracker effect. And basically, you want to lasso the track points that are near the place you want the stock footage to be, right? We want to put the stock footage right here, so let's lasso these track points. Alright, then you can do something really hot. What you can do is right click and do create solid. Now this is going to create a solid in 3D space that is in the average position of all those points we selected. So it's going to be in the right point in 3D space. So we can select that solid, hit P, and copy this position parameter. Select the position parameter, hit Control C or Edit Copy. And we want to click on the stock footage. Make sure the stock footage is a 3D layer. That's important because 2D layers are not affected by the camera. And you want to hit Edit Paste. Select the layer and do Edit Paste. Look at there, boom, it's in the right spot, but it's super small. So let's just hit S for scale. That's going to open the scale parameter, and we just want to scale this up. Amazing. And we can rotate this by grabbing our rotation tool up here. Just kind of rotate the y-axis. Grab the corner to rotate it around the z-axis. That is incredible. Look how solid it's following the camera motion. Alright, but there is kind of a problem here, and it's not very conspicuous in this scene. But if you think about it, since this stock footage is on a 2D plane, this part of the 2D plane is just as close as this part of the 2D plane. You see what I'm saying? So how do we make it to where this part actually is farther away in 3D space? Well, okay, what we could do is grab our rotation tool up here and just rotate the layer like this. Aha, now this part actually is closer and this part actually is farther away. Now the problem is it squished our layer too much. If we did it more, it'd be like, dang, it's like we're turning this into the flat earth, alright? Maybe the world actually is flat. How we can kind of compensate for this is actually just changing the aspect ratio of the element here. That's great. Okay, we fixed the flat earth, but now there's too much perspective. Like this part looks like it's super far away because it already had the perspective of it being smaller because it's farther away, just from the actual footage. Now when we rotated it, it looks even farther away. So this part looks super close and that part looks super far away. Well, we can fix this with a corner pin effect. So let's go to our effects and presets and we'll type in corner pin. Very easy to remember. And basically we're just gonna stretch this out so that, boom, and there we go. Now the perspective is right. It also really is further away and it looks the same as the original ground crack. But basically we just rotated this into 3D space, but yet it still looks the way it did when it wasn't rotated. All right, we did that with the corner pin and just changing the aspect ratio. So now this element should be even more solid on the ground. Now, if you do want to change the position of this element, I recommend changing the anchor point rather than the position parameter. So you click on it and do A. That way it's going to move relative to the direction of these arrows rather than relative to the comp. So we can just change the anchor point to shift it along that anchor point. And you can see the element disappears when we go past the end point, but you can right click, go to time, freeze on last frame. Then it freezes on the last frame and it lasts the whole composition. Alright guys, we're about to get advanced, so put your thinking caps on. How do we get rid of this freaking gray top? Like, that does not match our floor. In the original example, how come this gray stuff wasn't there? It looked like the actual floor, right? We don't want this gray stuff suddenly appearing. That might not match our floor texture. We're about to do something freaking savage. Alright, so we don't want to make any of these adjustments in our main composition, alright? Things get too complex, and this is a technique that'll translate into other projects. You want to pre-compose to simplify your project. So right click, we're going to do pre-compose, leave all attributes. Basically, this is going to create a composition and put our footage inside of it. And now we can go in this composition and have a clean workspace, right? There's only one layer and we can freely make all these adjustments because it's a clean workspace. When we're done with the adjustments, we can go back to the main composition and go back to all this complexity. But now that we pre-compose the layer, we can go inside that composition and everything is super simple and it's easy to be creative. All right, now my question is, how on earth are we gonna get rid of that gray surface layer on this ground crack element, alright? Like what, use the mask tool or key it out or like, no. We're actually about to do something pretty savage, alright? This is gonna be sleazy. Well, you may have noticed this is a .exr file, and .exr files are special, right? They're the chosen one, like Anakin from Star Wars, alright? They're special because they contain hidden information. And we're going to use that hidden information to create a matte. Now, in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how to use .exr files to extract hidden information to do amazing compositing tricks that you wouldn't think were possible with just a stock footage file. Alright, so there's going to be a link in the description to how to use .exr files to access hidden information. And so basically what we're going to do now is use the .exr file, use that hidden information to create a matte that defines where the top surface of this element is, and we're going to make the element invisible according to that map. So now we have a map defining where the surface is. Now we want our original footage back, so let's just duplicate this footage here. We can hit Control D or Edit Duplicate, and for this top layer, let's just get rid of the extractor effect so we have our original footage back. And we want this original footage to only exist where the white parts on this map are. So to do that, we use a track matte. So you're going to toggle switches till you see the track matte. And how track mattes work is they use information from the layer above it. We want the matte to be one layer above the actual ground crack because the track matte tracks the matte of the layer above itself. So this ground crack is going to use information from the matte. And so on the track matte, we want to choose the Luma matte. And that's going to make this footage layer only exist where there are white parts on this map because we did Luma matte. So you can see now only the top exists, but we actually want to do the opposite of that. We want to do Luma inverted. Now the footage doesn't exist where the white parts are. It only exists where the black parts are. Now you can see there's some problems here around the edges. We're just going to use a mask to remove that. It's because there's semi-transparent areas. Don't remove it all the way. So what we're going to do is just create a solid above these layers. And you can see it really helps that we're in this clean composition because we wouldn't be able to do that if we were in the main complex composition. So what we're going to do is turn this off, go to our mask tool, and just select around the main part of the ground crack stock footage. like this. And then let's turn this on, and basically what we're going to do is go to the blending mode of this layer, and we're going to choose Stencil Alpha. And that's really cool. We can matte out parts of our composition using blending modes. That's a super handy technique. Alright, so now the top doesn't exist, and it's going to be the texture of our original footage because it's transparent in those areas. So we're going to see our original footage. So let's go back to the main composition and see how this looks with our original footage. Boom, the gray is gone. Now it's just the cracks. And let's take a preview, see how this looks. Awesome, you can see it's definitely a step up from what we had before because now we don't see that ugly gray stuff around the edges. Right, it blends into our scene. It looks like the floor is actually cracking. The only problem is now, once it cracks, there's no hole. We gotta have that dude going what the freak in the background, right? It's not complete without the dude going what the freak. So how in the world do we put that dude in the background? Well, we have to create another map, all right? The key is maps. You have to define where you want the layer to exist by a map, and then you have to use that to composite that layer into the scene. So what layer do we want to be in the background? And by background, I mean what's in this hole, which is the dude sitting on his chair going what the freak right here. So I created a proxy for this layer as well, so it'll render faster, we can edit faster. This is our layer. So let's position it in 3D space. So we'll make it a 3D object. I'm gonna go to our 3D track layer right here. I'm gonna find some track points that would be a good spot in 3D space. Well, since these are at the edge of the building, that should be how far away it is. So we'll just do create solid, and we'll just move it down vertically. So because we want it down here, right? So way down here. So this is where we want the position of that background to be. So it's kind of like behind this floor. All right, so let's turn those solo layers off. And we want to copy the position from that solid we just created to the position of this background layer we just imported. So we'll hit Control C or edit copy, and then go to the background layer and hit Control V. Like that. Now we just gotta scale it up, but now it's in the right point in 3D space, and that's what is important. Alright, so we only want this office layer to exist inside of this crack element. So how the heck do we do that? Well, the key is you have to create a map, alright? A map defines where a layer is visible. So we need to duplicate this layer because this layer is going to create the map, right? So we need to duplicate it. So we can click on this layer, hit Control D, and that's going to duplicate the layer. Here's a problem. We want to make changes to this layer we duplicated, but if we make changes to this layer, it's also going to make changes to this layer. So how do we make it where we can go into one layer, go into that composition and make changes without it updating in the other layer? Well, the key is both of these layers can't share the same composition. The key is to duplicate the composition in the project window. That way it actually creates a separate composition. Okay, now where is it at? Well, to find it, you can easily just right click on it, go to Reveal Layer Source in Project. Here it is. And what you can do is just click on the layer here in the project and do Control D. Now these are separate compositions. When we make changes to this one, it will not make changes to this one. So we're going to replace this layer with our new composition we duplicated here in the project window. And we'll just select it. We gotta make sure and select it here in the composition. We're just going to drag the layer from the project window on top of the one in the composition. And that's going to replace it. That'll come really in handy. And also, I guarantee you'll find yourself doing this technique where you duplicate it in the project, duplicate it in the composition, and then replace it with a duplicate in the project, all right? You'll do that all the time. So now, the point of this is we can now make adjustments to this composition with it not affecting this composition, all right? All right, so we're gonna go in this composition and turn this into the map that we want. And just a review of what our goal is, we're trying to create a map that defines where the background layer should exist. So how do we do that? And basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this white solid off of Stencil Alpha and change it back to normal. And then I want to change the mask mode. Click on the solid, hit M, open the mask. We're gonna change this mask mode to subtract, like that. And then we just wanna get rid of this track matte, do no track matte. Then you can see we have a map based on transparency. These areas are not transparent. This area is transparent. And so we could use a track matte to make the background only exist where there's transparency. Aha, that's a map. Or you could apply a fill effect so the mat's a little bit cleaner. But basically, the background is only going to exist where there's transparency. And we're going to do that with a track matte again. So let's go back to our main composition. We can call this map. And here's our background layer, the office, the dude going what the freak in the background. Let's toggle switches till we see a track matte. And remember, the map has to be one layer above the layer that's using the map. Put the map right above it. And then on the office layer, we're going to choose alpha inverted because we want it to exist where there's transparency. Boom, like that. That is really cool. Let's check out a preview, see how this looks with our original footage. Whoa, that looks cool. It looks like the ground is really cracking in, and you see this background. That is amazing. This scene is really coming together. I'm thinking I'm gonna add a tritone to this background layer so that I can kind of control the color of it and make it look like the other footage. I'll do kind of a blue, and then I'll turn out the blend with original. Oh, and we gotta time it just right as well. So pretty much the last primary thing we would want to do with this scene, we can always make small adjustments. That is add dust elements to this scene. Okay, so you can see we have several dust elements from ActionVFX.com here. One I really like is this dust front element. And you can see that there's not like a sharp line here where the floor is like in a lot of other dust elements. So it's just super easy to use since there's no hard edges. You just drag it in. The top views are really nice. Different elements, but I'm going to drag in this front element here. Let's put it on the top of the composition. And as always, we got to put it in 3D space so it follows the motion of the camera. So first of all, we got to make it a 3D layer. So toggle switches till we see the 3D button right here. And you can go to our 3D track layer and just select the points around where you want the element. Create null. I'm going to copy the position from this null. So click the null, hit P, hit Control C on the position parameter, and then go to the dust element, hit Control V. Puts it in the right spot in 3D space, and then we can just scale it up, hit S, like that. And you can see it's actually behind the background layer. So we could either move it closer in Z space. You can hold Shift, and that's gonna make it move 10 times faster, like that. Or you can do a cool trick, and this will definitely come in handy, is you can put an adjustment layer right below the dust element. So layer, new adjustment layer. Stick it right below that element. It's visually in front of all the other layers, even though in 3D space it's actually behind it. Turn this dust layer to a screen blending mode to blend it in with the scene. But you can see it actually kind of brightens the scene, and sometimes when you have too many dust elements, it changes the lighting of your scene too much. You might not want it to brighten it because the screen blending mode is an additive blending mode. So your other alternative, if you don't want it to brighten your scene too much, what you can do is actually add a shift channels effect to the dust element and take alpha from luminance. Then you can fill it in with whatever color you want. So we'll just choose a fill effect. You could make it red, but we probably want it to be kind of a whitish gray. That way it doesn't brighten the scene too much, but it's still there. Alright, I know some of y'all's OCD is about to go insane if I don't orient this 3D layer correctly. Alright, there we go. No one better have any seizures or anything. We'll get through this. Alright, and if you're a real guru, what you can do is add fractal noise to the dust element, and that's going to add color variation. You could also definitely have fun animating the evolution so there's some movement in the fractal noise. Cool, so you can do anything from as simple as just using a screen blending mode, or all the way to, you know, adding fractal noise and color variation. It just depends on the quality or the amount of perfectionism you or your client wants. I'll just delete the fractal noise for this example, and we probably just want to really scale it up and make the timing right. What I also kind of like to do is make it fade in, so that way there's not like a dot of smoke at the very beginning. It just kind of puffs in. So I'll go forward a little bit and hit T for opacity. Select the dust layer, hit T, keyframe the opacity at 100%, and go towards the beginning and make it 0. That way the opacity kind of fades in. Let's check out a preview. Cool, and I found that dust elements really bring up the realism of the shot and help all the elements just blend together. So compositing dust elements are imperative. Alright, and we can just repeat the same exact process to add in different dust elements. What I'll actually do is duplicate it and replace it with a different dust element in the project window. So let's go to the project window, let's try dust top, and I'll hold alternate and replace it like that. Boom, make sure it's selected in the composition before you do it, otherwise it won't work. We can always change the lighting, super cool. And we can also add a little bit of falling dust elements to these walls when the earthquake starts. So you can see here ActionVFX also has a falling dust element. So you get the point. You can go to ActionVFX, download the whole collection of dust elements. You can get real creative with the different elements you use to just really bring the realism of your shot to the next level. Oh yeah, that is what we call pure lusciousness. Hope you guys have enjoyed learning these advanced skills that allow you to transform your vision into reality. These are valuable skills that people will pay you for. You can create your own ideas. Guys, please remember to drop a like below. Be sure to check out the next tutorial, link in the description, where we cover how to use that hidden information within EXR files. Alright, keep crushing it, stay motivated. My name's Lyndon for ActionVFX, and until next time, I'll leave you to it.